Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Very welcome to our Performance Power Hour, which is our customer webinar today with our technical account manager, Ted Filer, and our product manager, Michele Mancioppi. We will show you today all the new features and functionalities on the Instana platform and share these features with you on some presentation slides and also on our demo environment. So for today's call, we also have a small surprise at the end of our customer webinar today for you. So if you stay with us until the end, you'll hear more about the surprise. I would like to hand over this call to my colleague, Ted Filer. Ted, would you like to take over, please?
Thanks, Zainab. So welcome, everybody. We got a lot of cool stuff on the agenda for today. As you know, we do these webinars every month, and the idea is to bring you guys up to speed on new cool stuff we've got in the Instana platform in the last month. And as you can see from our agenda slide here, we've got some exciting updates for you. We're going to start off with the crazy world of serverless and containerless APM. My colleague and good friend Michele is going to dig into that for us, and then we're going to move over to sort of from the back end, where we're going to talk about serverless, up over to the front end. For all you front end developers out there, we're going to talk a bit about Web Vitals and how Instana can help you understand the Web Vital metrics. And then we're going to sort of slice and dice in three different directions today, again, from the back end serverless side to the front end Web Vital side. And then we're going to actually dig into some DevOps topic around basically some new capabilities with our Instana agent in the world of GitOps. So yeah, some pretty big changes, some really exciting updates we got for you today. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Michele, and he'll dig into the serverless world for us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michele. I'm the product manager in charge of all things tracing an agent at Instana. I'm having, of course, an interesting time setting up the slides. There we go. So 2020 is going to be the year of standard serverless. We started late last year with Lambda, Node.js. We doubled down on Lambda Python. Both these functionalities are GA, and they enjoy a very good adoption by our customers. Let me give you a quick overview of how this works. By having a very simple installation, you get out of the box really a lot. This is the demo environment for Instana. It's very simple to find out where your Lambda functions are. There we go. Turns out that sharing the screen was not, sharing a window was not the right thing. One simple query, and you see all the Lambda functions that you have in the environment. We provide a lot of details for them. At a glance, we are collecting information about the versions of your Lambda function. Where are they running? What are they doing? We provide out-of-the-box dashboards that give information about how many invocations, what is the duration, the errors. This Lambda is a bit lazy. Let me get something else. I'm not lucky with my choice of Lambdas. We collect all this information out of the box with the AWS agent, and then we trace everything for you. So it's very easy to find out which services are powered by Lambda and Instana. This looks particularly interesting. It's a AWS Lambda function powered by the Node.js runtime. We collect all the traces, all the calls, the erroneous calls. We tell you the usual information that you've grown accustomed to in Instana with the latency, the processing time, and of course you can drill down into each and every single call because Instana traces everything. All the requests from Lambda into the deepest database. Of course, our tracing works out of the box with everything else that Instana traces. whether it's running on Lambda or any other cloud or from under your desk. Instana covers it. And it's very easy to set up. What do you think, Ted?
Yeah, so that would be my first question. It looks cool, but how do I get it up and running?
It's actually very simple. We have good documentation. You find it in our revamped documentation website. Under tracing, you find AWS Lambda. And of course, we provide you several ways of installing Lambda, but of course, the best is the auto-trace way. With a few easy steps, including a layer, you get it up and running. But I'm guessing, Ted, it's a wall of text. We can do better than this, right?
Yeah. I mean, that works great if you have like one Lambda function.
It does, but actually you want something that is more automated. So
Yep.
inside the tool of Instana, this is what we call the agent onboarding dialog. This is where we strive to give you the easiest way to deploy things. We actually like to think of this dialog as the proof of the pudding. If it is too hard to explain how to install an Instana agent on this dialog, then we did something wrong. And in the case of Lambda, we provide you 3 easy steps. Pick the region where you have your Lambdas running. Tell us the name of your handler. And then we're going to give you what, for example, you may want to run from the AWS command line interface.
Yeah, now you're talking.
Right? So this is actually something very simple that you can integrate in your CI/CD pipeline. And you don't need to do any code changes. It's just configuration, and Instana takes it over from there. So, Ted, what do our customers say about using Lambda and installing Lambda?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting, right? It's like serverless has been something that, has been a buzzword for a while, I guess, but recently we've had more and more customers moving into the serverless world, and Lambda is really the first, I think, real implementation that they're dealing with. And we're getting a lot of positive feedback. It just fits right into our ease of installation, our automatic discovery and tracing framework. So yeah, a lot of positive feedback, a lot of great visibility.
We see a lot of interest in using AWS Lambda for both integration use cases, where, for example, even ourselves, we actually use it to orchestrate automation tests and to coordinate different tools that we use for planning and support. You all have seen our Zendesk support probably. When you create a ticket there, matching tickets are created in the project management and workflow management tools that we have inside Instana, and that is actually powered by Lambda. We also see a lot of interest in Lambda in our customer base for prototyping new projects. Lambdas are easy to set up and cheap to run, in particular if you don't have hundreds of invocations a minute. And that is something that is resonating very well with the adoption. And when you outgrow Lambda because of your workload, well, then we jump to Fargate.
Yeah, and I'm definitely excited to see that because, this is, I think, falling back into that buzzword topic has been an even bigger buzzword that until recently didn't seem to be one that people were really, implementing. They were just talking about it, but wow, in the past few months, it seems that that's really changed. So what is it that we're doing with Fargate?
And Fargate, it's very so. Fargate is fundamentally a technology from Amazon where you pay Amazon to make your containers run on top of the Elastic Container Service (ECS), and it has a different trade-off in terms of labor for you to keep running and operate, and cost that you pay to Amazon. When you have a considerable amount of invocations, running containers on Fargate is cheaper than running Lambda, but you have responsibility over a bit more of the infrastructure. And how is that going to look like in Instana? Well, you see, we start from our beloved infrastructure map, and you see that Instana picks up a Fargate container that is running inside a Fargate task, and inside it has a Node.js application. This Node.js application is serving load, the same way that you would do, for example, with any Lambda application. At the moment, it's not. We trace everything in Fargate for Node.js and Java and .NET Core. These three languages are today available for you to try out in our documentation in a technical preview stage. We are very confident that the user experience will remain the same. We are hammering out, we are making scalability tests, we're improving the instrumentation, we are improving the support in the Instana backend to collect more metrics, to provide out-of-the-box health information. Something that we are also going to do is to provide support in the short term for applications running on Fargate written in Go and in Python. And the way you set up this this support for Node.js, .NET Core, and Java is actually as well described inside the tool. When we jump to our beloved agent onboarding dialog.
Yeah, and this is actually, just if I could interject for a moment, for those of you that have been using Astana for a while, this might be new. Even just this screen here, we used to have all the instructions for installing our agents, in our documentation, which of course it's still in the documentation, but the better way to do it is what Michael is doing here, is going to that ... icon in the lower left for the more options, and then selecting agents, and then install agents. And you get this nice screen here where you can pick the platform and technology that you want to install the agent on, and it gives you specific instructions for your environment. So it's sort of one-stop shopping for installation.
There is a newer, quicker path. You click on Stan, and then you click on Deploy Agent, and you're brought into the same place.
Even better.
And so we are putting a lot of love into this dialogue. We see that it really helps with the adoption of Instana and to make good use of your time. It does. The fact that it's not, that something is not in this dialogue, it doesn't mean it's not possible. Our documentation covers more situations, more scenarios, and if you find something that that you would like to see that is missing, please let us know. There is a question from Sashvata. I hope I pronounce it right. Fargate in EKS is something that we are considering. We are looking at it as a platform. Fargate on EKS so EKS on Fargate works very differently than most Kubernetes distributions out there. So today we are not supporting it. It's something that we're looking into the future after we wrap up the support for Fargate on ECS. Now, Tad, should we go to Web Vitals?
Let's do it. Excuse me. I will share my screen. All right, so Web Vitals. We're moving, all the way to the other end of the chain, if you will, of the application architecture. So we're out here on the front end. And for those of you that are front-end developers, you're probably already aware of Web Vitals. It's, as the slide indicates, it's an initiative by our good friends at Google. There's a lot of different metrics that we measure, performance metrics that we measure when it comes to front-end APM, meaning, browser time. So when you think about it, we've gone from having our entire application on one tier in a mainframe to the crazy world of microservices in today's web world. And we all typically have web browsers at the client-facing side of the application. So the web browsers are doing more and more in terms of delivering content. And there are a lot of different metrics that have been available over time. And really what Google is doing here is they're trying to simplify it for us and say, let's try to whittle it down to just a few metrics that we can focus on. And, that doesn't mean we have to, obviously we don't have to do what Google says, but we do want to be innovative and, keep up with what the industry is doing in terms of performance. So we have recently enhanced Stana to support the capture of these web vital metrics. You can see there's really 5 metrics. The big 3, if you will, the core, what they call the core web vitals, are this largest contentful paint time, first input delay, and cumulative layout shift. And they have to do with, you can see here the LCP is for measuring load time, the FIDs for interactivity, and then visual stability for our CLS. And basically, you might be familiar with things like time to first byte. You got that over here. That's another web vital metric that's actually been around, from even before web vitals. We also have, the navigation timing API from the World Wide Web Consortium that talks about time to first byte. So there's some overlap, but the idea is that, time to first byte arguably isn't that important. It is important, but it doesn't really, at the end of the day, get you to user experience because it's just that first byte. You could talk about first contentful paint. That's kind of when the first content is painted. Again, that might be a splash screen. So is it really talking about your, the quality of the end user experience? So the largest contentful paint is really about, the measuring the time until the largest image or the largest content is painted, which we believe, or at least Google believes, that is more indicative of user experience. And then you've got, a couple others here. We all know about, websites that paint quickly, but then you can't interact with them. You try to click on buttons, the buttons don't work. That would be your first input delay. And how about the really annoying websites, especially I think on a mobile device, where the page loads, you start to read it, and then all of a sudden everything shifts around and you lose your place.
Oh, I hate those.
Yeah, it's the worst, man. Or some pop-up gets in your face and ruins the experience. So that's what the CLS is for. A couple other things to point out here. They also give us some metrics. Of course, we can choose to agree with them or not, but they say that your largest contentful paint needs to be under 2.5 seconds. Your first input delay under 100 milliseconds. Notice here that these are not time metrics, so they have their own formulas for measuring the cumulative layout shift. Obviously you can dig into the Web Vitals docs to understand how that's calculated. Another thing I would point out here, it's not on the slide, is that they recommend that you measure these metrics, and really all metrics, using the 75th percentile, which I'll get to in a moment when we do the demo. So again, that's talking about what Web Vitals is. What Stana has done recently is incorporated the capturing of these metrics into our front-end JavaScript instrumentation. So with that, let me get out of the slide here and flip over to my demo environment. So we are, of course, talking about our website data, which we can see here on our landing page. We've got a convenient little panel for. I can dig into it in great detail here, but what I'm going to do is jump directly into our Unbounded Analytics feature. And Michaela, this is actually my favorite feature in Stana, and I know actually as a product manager, this is one of your areas. And
yeah,
I have to say, it's
many hours on these things. Yes.
Yeah, it's super powerful, and I spend most of my time in Stana here. So let's just do a quick review. We can basically slice and dice all of our data, tracing data, if you will, whether that's tracing data on the application side, the website, application via our calls and traces, websites via beacons. We've recently added in mobile application data and profiling data. This is all, remember that Stana captures high cardinality data, and it's not sampled. So, you're seeing all the traces, all the calls, all the beacons. For our purposes with Web Vitals, we are going to, of course, stick with our website area. So I'm going to jump here to page loads. One of the things you can do in analytics, again, regardless of the area of Stana you're in, is you can use this filter toolbar. And for our purposes to start anyway, I'm going to jump straight to all filters. And I'm going to type in timing. And you can see right away, there's our first contentful paint, our first input delay, our largest contentful paint. Those are some of the Web Vitals metrics. Of course, we've got a whole bunch of other ones, as you can see as well. But let's just take, for example, one of the core Web Vital metrics, the largest contentful paint. Just for the purposes of demonstration, I'm just going to actually, let's take a look at all the page loads where we have that metric. So we've got just a few. It's a new metric. It's one that requires, we'll talk about installation later, but it does require some changes to how Stana is installed or what this JavaScript looks like. So we don't have a ton of data, but let's just dig into one of the page loads here and talk about, first of all, where we just talked about how you can find it in our data using analytics. Of course, actually, let me just take a quick jump back here. You could, by the way, instead of just doing is present, you could also, let's go back to largest, actually do it this way. We could change it from is present to greater than our threshold, the 2.5 seconds that Google recommended if we wanted to. But again, for the sake of demo, I'm just going to go for is present. Now, when I dig into the actual page load here, so what I've done is I've drilled directly into a single page load. We got our user information here, our browser information, all the things we expect to see for a page load. Now, the idea with Web Vitals is it's going to be, as you would guess, describing the actual initial page load. So, the way this screen works, and we'll look at more of these over the course of this demo, is you'll see an activity chart of all the different resources that are loaded and activity that occurs to get that page up on the screen for the user. It's the initial page load that is going to include the Web Vitals data. So if I expand that, you'll see right here, we've got our little Web Vitals section. And you can see in this case, I've got first contentful paint, largest, and time to first byte. You can see that actually in this case, the first and largest are about the same, but that, of course, is not always going to be the case. And notice that the time to first byte is quite a bit shorter. Now, of course, all these times are not long enough that we would probably care. But you can see already that time to first byte is probably not as helpful as these metrics are. So that's where you can find it. Again, you can use these metrics in analytics to search for particular page loads that have the metric or have the metric at a certain value over the threshold that you want to use. But even if you come into a page load through some other analytical path, whether that be through a drill down through dashboards or using Unbounded Analytics, anytime you expand that first page load, you will find Web Vitals metrics listed along with our, the metrics you're used to seeing if you've been using the front-end instrumentation in Stana for a while, our navigation timing metrics. Now, what I thought I'd do, while I've got your attention really, is to jump back to analytics here and talk a little bit more about the power of analytics in general. I'll stick to our website data since that's the topic of the day, but rather than looking specifically for a Web Vitals metric, I thought I'd just run through maybe a more general use case. I'm not sure everybody out there is even using what we call our EUM product, which is our website monitoring. And I'm not sure everybody out there is as familiar with our analytics capabilities as we'd like you to be. So I thought we'd use this time maybe to show you a little bit of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus in on a particular website, which is what you would typically do, right? Because different websites are going to have different requirements for performance. So I'm going to choose our Robot Shop website. And rather than digging directly into a Web Vitals metric, I'm going to simply look at the on-load time. Now, you'll notice that the on-load time, what we do is we display the mean time. But I hate mean time, actually. I'm much more into percentiles. Mean time, average time, can hide real performance problems. Whoops, wrong button. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually add some other metrics to the table. I'm going to add, for example, the on-load time, but I'm going to add the 95th percentile because I prefer to use, I'm going to leave mean there just for the sake of comparison, but I definitely prefer using percentiles to get a better understanding of my performance. And then since we are talking about Web Vitals, I will point out again that you can add the various Web Vitals metrics to the table here. First input delay, cumulative layout shift, first contentful, etc. I'm going to go ahead and add the first contentful paint metric. And again, I'll choose the 95th percentile. Now I'm going to save that. You'll see I've now got those metrics here on my table. One of the things I might want to do now is I've got it at the website for the entire website. I've got it grouped by the path, but I can change the grouping. So I'm actually going to want to understand this at the browser level. So I want to make sure that all the different browsers that my customers use are all operating well. So you can see now I'm grouping the metrics by browser. I can compare those metrics across the different browsers. I can sort on each metric, obviously, and see how they compare. It looks like, everything's pretty much the same, but Safari has definitely got the slower or slowest time. So maybe I'll drill into Safari. Now I've got all the different page loads from my Robot Shop website for Safari, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to group them by country because, again, geography can affect the performance in terms of network speeds and connections and things like that. My website is deployed across the globe, so I'll group it by country. And I can see in this case, I've got some people in Italy and the United States, and it looks like, again, Italy jumps to the top of the list here, so I can drill into Italy. Actually, let's do this before I do that. One of the other things we can do here is we can show the graph. And what the graph does is it will graph for me whatever metrics I have in the table. So since I added the onload time 95th and the first contentful paint 95th, you'll see those are available for me to chart or to graph. So I can click on these guys, and you'll notice that there was a period of time here, interestingly enough, where my metrics went up for both Italy and the United States. What I can do here is I can zoom into that time frame if I could operate my mouse correctly. There we go.
Hard.
What's that?
Mouse is hard.
Yeah, mouse is hard. It's true. I'm working on my master's degree in mouse right now. And actually, look at that. For that time period where I zoomed into, you can see the time period up here is just 7 minutes. We actually had some pretty lousy times here, and actually for the United States. So I'm going to drill into the United States. Now, again, I've now got all my page loads for that time period for Safari in the United States and my Robot Shop website. Now, in my case, I'm actually capturing user information. Now, before you freak out, this is not something that we do automatically. So we're not, breaking any privacy rules here, but you do have the option of capturing user information. You can also capture sort of anonymized session information if you don't want to have, usernames. In my case, I actually have usernames. So I can look at what these users are, and it looks like actually poor Jack Rassel is having some lousy website experience here. So I'll drill into Jack's page loads. I can, again, sort now. We've got each individual page load. He's got a bunch here that are upwards to 10 seconds and one that's even over 10 seconds. I can drill into that bad boy. And you'll see here that I'm back into a page load as we saw earlier. I can see Jack. I can see that he's running Safari, which we actually already knew, on, not surprisingly, on Mac OS. Excuse me. Get some more, metadata about him, his location. He's in Dallas. He's a member. We got some metadata here. He's a member. And then as we look down here, you'll see again all the activity, all the different resources that are loaded.
Oh, Ted, go into one of the traces. Let's see just how far EUM data follows us.
There you go. That's the idea. You'll notice this View Backend Trace button. So remember, the browser is just the first part of the puzzle here, right? So you interact with the browser is going to potentially send requests back to the back end. If we drill into this, if we expand this document page load, you'll see again, we've got our Web Vitals information here. We also get information on the backend trace. So the onload time was 11 seconds, but you can see 6.5 seconds of that was in the backend. And there were actually 8 calls with 5 errors, actually interesting. Now I can click here to drill into the backend trace. I can also click here. It doesn't matter, same result. You'll notice here I'm now in our backend tracing. This would be analytics on traces now. We were on, if we go back here just real quick, we were on analytics on page loads. We've jumped directly into the traces, but in context, you can see the same front-end information with my user, location, metadata as we saw before. So the point is that if I came into this trace directly into the back end, I would see that it was linked to the front end as well. But perhaps of more importance, we can see again that there were these errors. And if we look down here at our database call, you'll notice it interestingly hit 5 seconds almost exactly. And it looks like we've got a connection not available problem. So this is really the beauty of EUM. It's not just the fact that we've got Web Vitals information, which is definitely cool, but Instana is correlating all the front end and back end traces together, whether you come at the problem from the back end or the front end. In this case, I came at it from the front end, but the root cause of the time was in the back end. You'll always be able to get there because we correlate everything together.
Actually, there is also the other flip of the coin, right? You may troubleshooting some issue about your service, your API,
Exactly.
and then you find traces and you see who's impacted at the end of the chain, the end user.
Exactly. We could have come into this set of traces here by looking for example, this particular error, and we'd be able to actually see that in this case, Jack Russell was affected by it, and we could even use analytics to filter for this error and group by user, and determine what users were impacted. But again, that was sort of a big tangent because we wanted to make sure you guys understood the power of both analytics and EUM, but the topic of the day was really Web Vitals. And I did want to not move on before we quickly talked about how to install it or, configure it.
That's
basically
pretty easy, right?
Yeah, it's really easy actually. Basically, if you go to our release notes, for example, or search for Web Vitals, sorry, wrong click. Oops, that's their Web Vitals. This is also, by the way, where you can find all the information from them, but that's not what we want here. You will most likely need to update your website monitoring snippet. So again, for those of you that use our EUM capability, you're already familiar with how it works. Basically, when you add a website, so basically when you click here, you'll give it a name, and you'll get this JavaScript snippet that you can basically copy into your clipboard here. You can add that into your web HTML, and that will get you all the amazing EUM data that I've shown you today, as well as a lot more that I didn't have time to show you. This snippet has changed. So when we released the Web Vitals support a few weeks back, we updated this snippet to capture that data. So if you've got a website out there that you've been monitoring for a while, you'll want to check out this new snippet and replace the one that you're currently using with this new one. If you have obviously modified your snippet, because there's a whole lot of really cool things you can do with the snippet. You can, for example, delineate pages, identify users, do session tracking, metadata, all sorts of things there. You're going to want to merge those changes that you made in with this basic new snippet. Make sense, Michaela?
It does. Fundamentally,
Awesome.
the message you guys should bring home is that you have a lot of new cool toys with EUM, and you should really use EUM. In Instana, we talk of EUM as the carpet that ties together the room, to cite the Big Lebowski. It is
Greatest movie ever made.
Right, it is. It is. It's actually the thing that brings together all your services, all your APIs, because at the end of the day, what you really want is to give a delightful experience to your users. And EUM allows you to monitor that, both web-based as well as mobile.
How much does it cost?
Nothing.
There you go.
We actually we insist that you use it to give the best experience you can to your end users, and that's why we absolutely don't want to dissuade anybody with charging. You have your licenses to monitor the backends. We throw in the front end.
We're good people.
We are interested in the success of our users and their users because life is too short for sucky systems. Now, speaking about systems, there is something that is very close to my heart, and it is how hard it is to manage Instana agents. It's not that hard, but what we try is to shave every single bit that we can in terms of work that you need to do. We pride ourselves of our first day, like we call it day one experience. You deploy the Instana agent and it works. And we also pride ourselves that in most of the times, just deploy the Instana agent and default configurations are just fine. But sometimes you may want to configure something. You may want to give a custom name to the agent. You may want to configure some sensors with credentials. And that today requires you to modify the configuration files of the agent on the machines. And that's not always that easy, right, Ted?
It's not, and so if I could just give a couple examples real quick. So, you've got the configuration YAML file mentioned there on the screen, and that's a file where you can do all sorts of amazing things with the agent. If you've got the agent on 4 hosts and it's installed directly on the host, it's pretty easy to manipulate that file. But nowadays we've got thousands of agents that can be in containers. There can be all sorts of abstraction between the agent and the actual underlying OS. So it can become tricky in a lot of cases.
It's also something that we're seeing. But when you have smaller infrastructures, it's easier to have very tight control over it. But in large organizations with a lot of different teams with very specialized responsibilities, it is not that simple. And sometimes you need to go and walk over to a desk of a colleague or open a ticket for them to update a configuration. So what we did, we actually went the most DevOps way we could imagine, and that is to go GitOps. What are we doing? We have built a Git client in the Instana agent. And if you create a Git repository in the configuration folder of the agent will use that information to fetch new configurations. It's something that already today is pretty easy. You create the Git repository and off you go. And in the future, we want to integrate entirely with both the Docker-based deployment as well our one-liner, the Windows installer, and all the other ways of delivering agents. The message is the following. You install the Instana agent and you remotely steer its configuration through Git, and you never have to touch it again. And why is that? Because not only the Instana agent will become super easy to configure remotely, but as you know, it's also can update itself. And what we offer is Instana agents that can update themselves, for example, daily. But there is something called the dynamic version pinning that provides an excellent trade-off between stability, controllability, and capacity of updating to the latest and greatest version and enjoying of the latest new features and bug fixes. Today, to change the version that the Instana agent should use, you need to change one file, but on the machine where the agent lives. But now that file is something that you can change remotely, and then the agent will fetch and update itself. It's really nice.
That's going to be a major improvement.
It's also something that we think will provide an entirely new ease of experience in managing large fleets of Instana agents. And we have customers with tens of thousands of those running around. So, Ted, do you want to see how it works?
I sure do. I want to use it.
So I'm going to show a console, and I'm going to apologize for that. It's not going to be as scenic as other demos that we've given today. Let me actually increase the font size, otherwise.
Yeah, please do. I'm old.
I'll have you all squinting really hard, and that's not nice. So what you see here is that I'm going to fire up a Docker container built from a build that we have done together with Gregory. He's actually in the chat, and we are going to tell the container to fetch information from this particular repository I have on GitHub. Let me show you that to prove that I'm not cheating. This is a GitHub repository. It contains, I kept it simple, one configuration file that testifies to the obvious. That is awesome. And this information is something that today you would have to deliver on the agent with other means like Terraform, like SSH. But instead, what you can do is just to fire up this container with these two additional the environment variables that tell us where is the repository and which branch in the repository you want to follow. And then the install agent will bootstrap.
I just want you to know that this is not what I would classify as a large font.
That is serious.
But it's fine. You just rock and roll, buddy. There you go.
I will have to use shorter environment variable names. I can put 5 on screen. So what you see is that the install agent has discovered in the running container that there is a repository, and it will actually go fetch the data and start over based on the latest and greatest configurations. The agent has been, there we go. It found the repository, it's activating, it's fetching everything, and off we go. And to prove that the agent is actually has those configurations now, we can run a bit archaic command that is just going to read this configuration file for us. There we go. This configuration file came over from GitHub into our Docker agent image dynamically. So this is the first step. We're very excited about the possibilities that this opens up. We're going to work very closely with all of you that want to refine this and make it fundamentally one of the staples of GitOps and microservices in the foreseeable future. I am very proud to say that we are literally the first APM vendor that actually has done something like this.
What do I need to do to get it going?
It's already working. So all the agents that have been published since 1 week have this capability. The documentation to set it up is available in our Docker page. So you go home and set up and manage in Stana and host agent, where you find all the information you need to get your agents going and installed, Git-based configuration management, and off you go. At the moment, it requires you to create manually the repository, but we're going to automate that entirely for you using the environment variables that you have seen. And
okay, so I manually create a repo local to the agent on the file system as the first step.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that step will also go away in a few weeks, where you will just tell the agent with a couple of environment variables or configuration options in the installation where to find the repository, and it will work. And since it uses Git inside, all the authentication mechanisms that you already know will be applicable as well. You want to authenticate to your repositories with an SSH key. Sure, mount it in the container, it will work.
Awesome. Very exciting.
Which leads us to Google, please, questions.
Yeah, I mean, looks like we had a bunch of questions while I was talking, but yeah, folks, if you got any, we've got about 15 minutes left. If you've got any additional questions for either Michaela or myself, please fire away.
You can ask literally anything you want.
I think there have been a lot of questions in the chat, so I'm just going to try to focus on the ones which didn't get a reply yet for the sake of the time. So one question was regarding the Web Vitals, and the question from bad trend is, are the web vitals measured based on old browsers or only Chrome like Google?
Yeah, right. So that's a great question. And the short answer is, it's new, and guess what? It's created by Google. So what do you think supports it? So in fact, I think I have a link. Maybe I don't, but in the interest of time, yeah. Right now, it's all of them. Remember, there was five? All five of them. They're supported by Chrome, by Google, and then the other browsers currently support a subset of them. And as we move forward, just like we saw with the navigation timing API, the other browsers will start adopting them. It is, by the way, fully documented on the Web Vitals documentation what the browser support level is.
However, since the support for Web Vitals is built in Chromium, which is the
exactly
project behind most of the browsers used today, including the latest Microsoft browser, we are not far off.
That's a good point.
There is literally now a handful of browsers not based on Chromium. So Firefox, they will also implement it. Safari has forked Chromium long ago. They will also probably implement it, and that pretty much covers 99% of the market.
Great. I love your detailed explanation. Thank you very much for that. So I know that we have replied to this question, but just for the sake of transparency, maybe for other customers on our webinar who are interested, one question was, how do you monitor Fargate in EKS within Stana? It should be a sidecar container instead of daemon set. And is there a way to spin up Fargate in EKS fast within 10 to 20 seconds?
So Fargate on ECS, as we show you, we have a new breed of agents similar to the Lambda ones that you bake into your container image. For EKS on Fargate, that's a completely different story where we will need to see how we can reuse the technology that we built for both Fargate and Kubernetes monitoring to a platform that, although EKS on Fargate gives you access to the Kube API, it also restricts a lot of things. You cannot run daemon sets. There is no such thing. You have very stringent security settings. There is a lot of things that our agent does today in every other Kubernetes that doesn't work in EKS on Fargate, because you are with EKS on Fargate, you're literally telling Amazon, take these containers and run them, I care not where. And so they close you off from everything underneath.
Okay, sounds perfect. So besides from that, again, I think you have replied to this question. Can we have a breakdown per page? Homepage, PLP, PDP, checkout, payment?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So that's one of the sort of, I don't know, basic is the right word, but if you look at the any website monitoring dashboard, you'll see a top pages panel breaking it down by page, and the JavaScript snippet that I showed earlier, that full API has in EUM functions that allow you to delineate how a page is defined.
Okay, sounds great. So I'll just quickly jump to the next questions for the sake of the time. I think this question has been answered as well, just for all our other customers. One question was for heavy traffic websites. Are there any data retention systems provided that enable to reduce the amount of web vital metrics saved in Stana?
Well, the point is, we really pulled all the stops on end user monitoring, and we engineered a system that is highly scalable. We trace very heavy load websites on behalf of our customers without the need of sampling anything. In terms of, so we're going to keep every single piece of tracing data for 7 days, and then we're going to keep a significant fraction for a year afterwards. And that will be enough for you to see how the quality of your website has evolved over the releases and sprints.
Great, thank you very much. There is another question. I think this was regarding the analytics view, regarding the table. The question was, is there a way to save those created filters so I don't have to recreate them every time?
Oh, let's give Ted, do you want to give one last demo for the file sharing, for the link sharing, or do I?
I think you should, buddy.
All right. My pleasure. So, folks, for the longest time, we have had one of the best kept secrets in Instana, because the link sharing capability, with a very arcane and unfortunately not discoverable at all way. You could generate a short link, but actually, now it's super easy. So you click over here, and we automatically generate a short link for you. Yeah, it was Command L, but if you were on Mac, it was different, and it took me weeks to learn. In specifically everything that you're doing in Unbounded Analytics, as well as anywhere else in Instana, really, it's stored in the URL, right? So let's do some interesting query. Today we were talking about lambdas. So let's filter for things that is running on Lambda, and then we want to group them by, I don't know, service name. All right. And then I want to show the graph. But actually, I do not want these matrices. These matrices, I don't like them well enough. Instead, I would rather have the 99% percentile of latency, because that's so much funnier. Look, latency, and now generate the link for me. And new tab, click the link. Ta-da! Find the differences. There are no differences.
So basically, you can bookmark those links.
Yeah. And you can share in Jira, you can share in Slack. We actually have a Slack application that when you share an Instana link on Slack, you can just drill into that. It's really cool stuff. We have been sharing many more links to Instana since we introduced this feature.
I hope that this was answering your question. So I'll just continue. The next question was from Umut. Is it okay to pass the users' emails and names to Instana in terms of GDPR? And do you cover this under your data protection policy for EU customers?
Oh, this is a topic that requires a glass of whiskey in front of a fire. So GDPR is a relatively complex topic. The crux of the matter is Instana is something that you can declare as a data processor. You have to disclose to your end users that Instana will keep their data, and then whatever policies you want to apply to that, it's fine. If you want data removed from Instana because you realize that you didn't ask for consent, you can ask us and we will do it for you. We have our very nice security officer, Mirko. He's there to answer all your questions. And you can reach him at, I think, Instana at security.com, or you can reach to any
Security at instana.com, actually.
Exactly. Well. and then we'll put you in touch. But the answer is yes. We have a lot of customers also based in Europe and in Germany, which is on average the country that is the most sensitive around data privacy and security topics, and they're having a lot of fun and getting a lot of value out of UM. So you should too.
Yeah, we are GDPR and SOC 2 compliant.
Perfect. And I'll bring you together with our security officer, Umut. So next question, very general question is, will recording of the session be available later? I think we also have an answer here. Mm-hmm.
It will, short answer.
Okay, sounds perfect. And I think this has been, no, not replied. There is a question, and even for on-prem from Paul, and even for on-prem, can we switch off this data collection of usernames?
We actually do not collect usernames by default. You need to opt in by giving them to us. That, correct me if I'm wrong, it's one line in the snippet to send the user data.
Yeah, I mean, there's different ways you can do it also. I alluded a little bit to it earlier, where if you want to use a sort of an anonymous session ID instead of an actual user, you can do that as well. But either way, you have to opt in. And it is one line, to your point, Michaela.
And I would also say that with with the power of Instana and the fact that we bring together EUM and distributed tracing under one smooth transition from the website to the deepest database, what you actually could do is rather use completely random usernames. So each EUM session to have an unrelated username. That
like Michaela.
Like Michele 12345, yes, of course. And that actually will allow you to, since our monitoring doesn't depend on meeting the list, it's something that you can fundamentally shape to the tightest levels of privacy that you would like to offer to your users. For example, before joining Stana, I was working at SAP, right? And we had endless discussions about whether someone, whether a coworker would have to opt in to have end user monitoring rolled out for them. So the solution was we use completely anonymous identifiers, and we allow the possibility to opt in the UI, and that's also easy to realize. So you can, and you should.
Great feedback. So let's just jump to the next topic from Breno. Do Fargate containers count as functions or as hosts for pricing purposes?
The pricing has not been defined yet. What we are thinking is something in between. So with Lambda functions, the unit is a function in a region, and honestly, we do not care how much load you serve for those Lambda functions. You're gonna use them as well you like, and Instana is not gonna charge you with pay as you go or strange tiers. It's just gonna be fine. You just use them and everything is cool. For Fargate, we're thinking something more in the direction of containers. But we will come out to the details when definitely when Fargate goes GA around the end of summer.
Last question. I know the reply is already in the chat, but just for the rest of our attendees regarding the web vitals from Paul. The question is if this feature will come to the on-prem Instana servers soon.
It's already available in the latest release.
Sounds amazing. And
you can get the latest and greatest containers from Evgeny and our on-premises team. Deploy them on your Docker-capable host, and off you go.
Amazing. Thank you very much for all your questions and all the great detailed replies so far. So these have been all questions so far. We got also a lot of compliments, which I'm going to keep for myself.
It's all you, Zainab.
It was all your hosting.
Exactly, definitely. But maybe before we end this webinar, I would love to share one last. Oh, thank you very much, Gregory. He said immediately, you deserve them, Zainab. I
think he's pulling your leg.
Guys, I have loyal customers. You can't compete with me.
We know that, Zainab.
Thank you very much.
I'm only mildly jealous of you.
Okay, so just for the end of our customer webinar today, I would like to share
socks.
Okay, go for it. You will receive Instana socks with our lovely robot Stan. And how you can receive them is by uploading a recording with a short video or audio clip with your phone or camera, whatever is available for you. Under instana.com, get vocal. And as soon as we receive your recording, whether it takes 3 minutes, whether 5 minutes, any feedback you have for us, we will provide you with these great Stan socks, which I think all Instana employees already have. And ever since we have them, we feel much better. So we want to share this experience with the Instana socks with all our customers. And as you can see here, you will be also entered to win $100. This is a nice campaign from our marketing team. Thank you very much for that. And I hope to receive a lot of recordings from you so far.
Can you spend those €100 to buy matching shoes with Stan on top of them?
Just buy more socks.
No, you have to buy more Instana licenses with those $100, guys. Don't give customers crazy ideas. Perfect. I can already see some thumbs up for the socks and for the recordings. I'm already looking forward to receive them. So far, I don't see any further questions. Thank you very much, Ted. Thank you very much, Michele, for the great demo. And yeah, our Winky Stan, of course. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining our webinar today. And we are looking forward to see you on our next webinar in 1 month again. Have a great day. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye,
Have a great day.